I was standing in that little rental kitchen in Palo Alto, 6 months pregnant, my hands shaking so bad I could hear the spoon rattle against the side of the pot. The whole place smelled like garlic and chicken and that faint lemon cleaner I always used on the counters, trying to make a tired old kitchen feel like a real home. I had a note in my hand, one more note in a long line of notes I'd written to my husband, because that was how we did things. That was how we'd always done things. We wrote it down, we signed it, we touched each other's wrists and cheeks and shoulders, and we called that communication. Richard was standing close behind me, so close I could feel his breath warm against the side of my neck. He was reading over my shoulder like he always did when I'd just finished writing him something. The paper shook a little in my hand, catching the kitchen light. And that's when it happened. "Margaret, I need to tell you something." Clear as day, in a low, smooth voice I had never heard before in all the months I'd known that man. My fingers let go. The note slipped from my hand and fluttered down between us like a dead moth, drifting in slow motion. I stared at that scrap of paper and thought, this must be a dream. This must be some kind of cruel, waking dream, because my death husband had just spoken to me. Let me go back, sugar. Let me back us up a long ways. I've learned, at 68 years old, that some stories, they don't make sense if you only tell the middle. Some stories you have to walk all the way back to the start, even when that starting place feels like a different lifetime, even when it hurts to look at who you were back then. So let me tell you how I ended up in that kitchen, belly round as a watermelon, my world cracking under my feet like thin ice. It was 1991, and I was 32, and I thought I'd already missed my chance. San Francisco back then felt too big and too small all at once. Too big when the fog rolled in thick over the bay and I'd ride the Muni home in the dark with my briefcase on my lap, wondering if this was what a grown woman's life was supposed to feel like. Too small when I went back to my little studio apartment, the one with the narrow windows and the radiator that hissed like it had opinions, and realized it was just me and the hum of the old fridge. I was a junior architect at a firm downtown, which sounds fancy till you know what it meant. It meant long hours, copy running, coffee fetching, and getting my name tucked into the credits of projects nobody in my family would ever see. It meant late nights hunched over blueprints while everyone else went home to husbands and kids and real kitchens with real dinner tables. Every Sunday, my mama called, like clockwork. I'd sit on the edge of my futon with the phone tucked under my chin, looking out at that stripe of gray water between the buildings, listening to her soft little sigh before she began. "Your sister Catherine just told me she's expecting again, Margaret. That'll be 3 grandchildren she's given me, Margaret. 3. "That's wonderful, Mom." "Mm-hmm. And the Johnsons girl, you remember Amy? You two used to play with those Barbies out back. Well, she's engaged now. 26, sweet as ever. Her mama's just over the moon. I'm happy for Amy." And then it would come every week like church bells. "I just don't understand what you're waiting for, baby. You're not getting any younger. Men don't want a woman marry women in their 30s who..." "Mom, I have to go. I've got work to finish." I'd hang up, set the phone down gentle, and stare at my reflection in the dark window, my own face looking back at me, tired, capable, alone. Now, I could tell you I was strong and independent and didn't care what anybody thought. Truth is, sugar, I was lonely, deep down, bone-tired lonely. I was tired of coming home to silence, tired of pretending I didn't notice when my colleagues slipped out early for soccer games and school plays while I stayed to tweak floor plans for strangers. I was tired of being Aunt Margaret with the big city job at every family gathering, always holding someone else's baby. So when my mama called one Sunday and cleared her throat in that particular way she had, I knew something was coming. Now, don't hang up, sugar. Just listen. She told me about Richard Hayes. She said, he's Dorothy's boy. You remember Dorothy from my book club? Always brought that lemon pound cake? Well, Dorothy started some kind of computer company, very successful, very handsome, and he's ready to settle down. Mom, I am not going on another one of your blind dates. This is different, sugar. He's special, Margaret. There was something in her voice then, a softness, a little tremor. He had an accident a few years back, a motorcycle accident, lost his hearing, completely deaf now, but he's adapted so well, reads lips, knows sign language. Dorothy says he's the same charming man he always was, just quieter. A lot of women don't want to deal with that, you know, but I thought you might be different. You've always been so patient, so understanding. I should have heard the manipulation in there. I really should have. But what I heard was something else. I heard, here is a man who won't judge you for being 32 and unmarried. I heard, here is a man who will need you, who will be grateful for you. I heard, here is a man who might really see you. Okay, I said finally, one dinner. Richard Hayes walked into that Italian restaurant in San Jose like he owned the whole block. Tall, dark hair just starting to gray at the temples, brown eyes sharp and bright. He wore an expensive suit that fit like it was sewn directly onto his body. He didn't talk, couldn't talk, I thought. He smiled, though. He shook his ears, shook his head, then pulled a little notepad and pen from his jacket pocket like it was a magic trick. I'd spent 2 weeks with a sign language book propped on my bathroom counter, practicing in the mirror till my fingers cramped. The minute I saw that notepad, I wanted to tuck my hands under the table. But Richard made it easy. We passed that notebook back and forth, our fingers smudged with ink by the end of the night. Your mother talks about you constantly, he wrote in a neat, firm script. The brilliant architect daughter, the stubborn one who won't settle down. I laughed, covered my mouth, and wrote back, she makes me sound like a prize mare she's trying to sell. He read it and grinned big and bright, then wrote, she undersold you. Now, sugar, that's the kind of line a woman remembers. We called it dating, I guess, though it didn't look quite like the movies. There were no long phone calls, no whispered late-night I miss yous. There were notes and dinners and walks where we said everything with our hands and our eyes. We went to movies with subtitles and sat side by side in the dark, and I'd forget sometimes that he couldn't hear the music swelling around us. I enrolled in a proper sign language class after work, 3 nights a week, fluorescent lights humming overhead, my hands stiff and clumsy, my cheeks hot every time I messed up. Richard was patient, or at least he looked that way. He'd take my fingers and gently reposition them, his touch warm and deliberate. He taught me how to say love, tomorrow, beautiful. His mama, Dorothy, was thrilled with me. She invited us to Sunday dinners in Los Gatos, in that big echoing house of hers with the heavy drapes and the smell of pot roast clinging to every surface. She'd sit at the head of the table, watching us sign across the plates and serving dishes, tears shining in her eyes. She told me once when Richard stepped out into the yard to check his pager. I was so worried he'd never find anyone. After the accident, he changed so much. Stopped seeing his friends, broke up with that awful girlfriend, Julia. She said she couldn't handle being with someone who was deaf. Can you imagine? I couldn't. I thought about that Julia woman a lot back then. What kind of person walks away from someone they love because life got hard, because of a disability? In my head, she was cold and shallow and cruel. In my head, I was the opposite of her. 8 months in, Richard took me to the beach at sunset. The sky all bruised purple and orange, the wind whipping my hair around my face. He tugged on my sleeve and pointed down to the sand where he'd written in big crooked letters, "Will you marry me, Margaret?" I cried. Of course I did. I signed yes over and over till my fingers blurred. He slid a ring on my shaking hand, a diamond that caught the fading light and scattered it everywhere. I thought, this is it. This is the moment my life finally starts. We got married 3 months later in a little chapel up in Napa. Just family and a few close friends. We had an interpreter for the vows. I signed mine, tears dripping off my chin, my hand shaking but sure. I promised to love him in sickness and in health, in silence and in sound, although I didn't say the sound part because I didn't think he'd ever hear my voice. Our wedding night, I half expected some miracle. You know how stories go. The curse breaks, the man speaks, the music swells. There was no miracle. Richard stayed silent. He talked with his hands and his eyes and his mouth in other ways I won't share with you, sugar. But I will tell you this. I went to sleep feeling more chosen and cherished than I ever had in my life. We moved into a little house in Palo Alto. Not fancy by some standards, but to me it was a palace. There was a yard out back with a scraggly lemon tree, a guest room for one day, and an office where I could spread my blueprints across a real wooden desk instead of my kitchen table. Richard's software company was doing real well from what I could piece together. There was talk of going public within a year. Words that didn't mean much to me at the time but made Dorothy's eyes sparkle at Sunday dinner. I cut back my hours at the firm. "You'll want to be home more once the babies come," Dorothy said, patting my hand as if it were already decided. Babies. Plural. I nodded along, telling myself this was what women did, what good wives did. I told myself we'd discussed it, that me scribbling, "Maybe I'll quit when we have kids," on a notepad and him nodding counted as a conversation. 4 months after the wedding, I found myself in our tiny bathroom staring at 2 pink lines on a stick. I tried to sign it to him when I ran into his office, but my hands were shaking too hard. I shoved the test at him instead. His whole face lit up. All the light in the world seemed to rush straight into those brown eyes. He pulled me onto his lap, kissed my cheeks, my forehead, my fingertips. Then he pulled back, looked me right in the eye, and signed slow and clear, "You'll be an amazing mother." I believed him. The pregnancy was rough. The books call it morning sickness, but whoever wrote those never met me. Mine lasted all day and half the night. My back irked, my feet swelled, and by 5 months, just walking up the firm's front steps felt like climbing a mountain. I quit. It felt like stepping off a cliff and hoping there was a net somewhere below the clouds. Richard signed that he supported me, that he was proud of me, that now I can focus on the baby. Dorothy beamed. "Now you can focus on what really matters, being a wife and mother. That's a woman's true calling." I was smoothing a little duck-printed onesie when it hit me. "Dorothy, did you ever work after Richard was born?" "Oh, of course not. Richard's father wouldn't have allowed it. A man needs to know his wife is taking care of the home." She said Richard's father like he was a distant cousin instead of her ex-husband. They divorced when Richard was in college, but the way she talked, it was like he just stepped out for cigarettes and never came back. Something in her tone that day made a little knot form in my stomach, but I was 6 months pregnant and bone tired, so I pushed it down. That's what I did back then. I pushed things down. One evening, about 6 months in, I was standing at our stove, cooking grilled chicken and vegetables because it was Richard's favorite and because I was desperate to keep some sense of normal going. My back ached, my ankles swelled, and by 5 months, just walking up the farm's front steps felt like climbing a mountain. I just finished writing him a note, red or white, with a little smiley face, because even though I couldn't drink, I wanted dinner to feel special. I held the note up behind me like I always did when he was close. That's when he leaned in, so close I could feel the heat from his body against my back, and spoke. "Margaret, I need to tell you something." The note fell from my hand. Time didn't just slow down, it cracked. I turned around, my belly bumping the counter. Richard was standing there, his mouth moving, real words spilling out. "I'm not deaf," he said. "I never was." I remember blinking, like maybe I could blink the scene away and reset the whole day. You're not deaf." It came out in a whisper or a croak, I don't know which. He shook his head once, like some guilty little boy. "I can hear you perfectly. I've been able to hear everything this whole time." The baby kicked so hard it made me gasp. My fingers dug into the countertop to keep from sliding right down to the floor. "The motorcycle accident? I did have one when I was 19, but it wasn't serious, some road rash, no hearing loss." I stared at this man I'd married, this man whose hands I'd watched so carefully, and for a moment I truly felt like I was hovering up near the ceiling, looking down at a stranger in my husband's body. "You've been lying to me for almost 2 years, I said. He winced. "It wasn't lying exactly, it was more like a test." "A test?" I repeated, my voice thinner now, higher. "A test for what exactly?" He held up both hands like he was trying to soothe a wild animal. "It was my mother's idea, actually," he said. "After Julia left me, I was a mess. I thought we were going to get married, and then she dumped me, said I was too focused on work, not romantic enough, not exciting enough. My mother said I needed to find someone who would love me for who I really was, not for my money or my status, someone patient, someone kind, someone who'd stick around when things were difficult." He talked faster and faster, like the words had been bottled up inside him and the cork finally popped. "So we came up with this plan. I'd pretend to be deaf. Any woman who couldn't handle it, who wouldn't learn sign language or got frustrated, she wasn't right for me. But if someone stuck around, if she learned my language, if she was patient and understanding, that was someone special." "And you found her," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "You found your special someone. How wonderful for you, Richard." I felt something in me hardened like clay left out in the sun. "Does your mother know?" I asked. He hesitated, just long enough to answer the question. "Oh my God!" I backed away, one hand on my belly like I could shield the baby from the truth. "Your mother knows," I said. "She's known this whole time." Dorothy's teary smiles at dinner, her grateful talk about someone accepting her damaged son, all flashed through my mind like slides in a projector. "I was so worried he'd never find anyone," she'd said, "after the accident. You two lied to me for 2 years. You watched me struggle to learn sign language. You watched me quit my career. You stood in a church and watched me sign vows to a man I thought couldn't hear me. We were trying to help me find the right person, to protect me." "To protect you," I echoed. by tricking some desperate 32-year-old woman into giving up her life, by making her think she was helping a man with a disability, by letting her believe she was needed. "You didn't give up your life," he said. "You chose to learn sign language. You chose to—" "I chose those things because I thought my husband was deaf." The word ripped out of me like a scream. "I thought you needed me. I thought I was being a good wife. But you're not deaf, Richard. You just have a mother who thinks other people are toys and a son who doesn't know how to say no to her." He flinched at that. "That's not fair," he said quietly. "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" My voice got loud then, louder than I'd ever heard myself. "I learned a whole language for you, Richard. I walked away from my career for you. I am carrying your child, Richard. I am 6 months pregnant with your baby, and you've been lying to me since the day we met." "I wasn't lying to your face," he said weakly. "You couldn't see my face when we were signing." "Get out," I said. "Maggie, get out of my house. It's our house. I don't care what the mortgage says. Get out and go stay with your mama. Y'all can congratulate each other on a job well done." He stared at me like he thought I'd change my mind, like if he just stood there long enough, I'd fall back into the role of patient, understanding wife. I didn't. He grabbed his keys and left, the front door slamming so hard the little stained glass panel rattled. The kitchen filled with the smell of burning chicken. I remember that. And then, nothing. Just bits and pieces, like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Next thing I really remember is Catherine's arms around me on that kitchen floor. The sign language book scattered all around us, pages torn out and crumpled like I'd tried to erase the whole language with my bare hands. "He's not deaf," I kept saying. "He never was. It was all fake." Catherine rubbed my back in slow circles, the way Mama used to do when we got sick as girls. "Oh, Maggie," she whispered. Nobody called me Maggie anymore except her. Not Richard, not Dorothy, not my own mother, just Catherine. "I have to call Mama." "Maybe wait until—" But I was already dialing. Mama answered on the 3rd ring. "Margaret, I wasn't expecting to—" "Did you know?" I cut in. Pause. "Did I know what, dear?" "That Richard isn't deaf, that he's been pretending this whole time, that he and Dorothy came up with this little test to see if I was worthy. Did you know?" More silence, the heavy kind. "Dorothy mentioned that they wanted to make sure any woman he married would be committed for the right reasons. I thought I only wanted what was best for you." I hung up. My hand shook as I slammed that phone down, then I picked it up and threw it at the wall. It shattered, little plastic pieces skittering across the floor. "She knew," I told Catherine. "Mama knew, and she didn't tell me. She thought she was helping, getting her spinster daughter married off at last." "Come here," Catherine said, pulling me in, my belly pressed awkwardly between us. "What am I gonna do?" I whispered. "I'm 6 months pregnant. I quit my job. All our money is in this house. I can't. I didn't even know how to finish the sentence. Leave? Stay? Start over? They all seemed impossible. Catherine stayed those first nights, moving around my kitchen like she'd lived there all her life. She made me toast and scrambled eggs I barely touched. She watched me pace and cry and stare out the window. Richard called. I let it ring. He came to the door. I locked it and told him through the wood that if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. My voice was calm and cold in a way that scared me. He left letters, long handwritten letters with his neat script marching down the page. Explanations, apologies, all the things he should have told me with his mouth months ago. I didn't read them. I burned them in the fireplace, one by one, watching the paper curl and blacken. Dorothy came by, too. "Don't be unreasonable, Marguerite," she called through the door. "You're carrying my grandchild. We need to discuss this like adults. You watched me learn sign language for a man who didn't need it. You watched me quit my career. You cried at my wedding like you were so grateful I'd accept your damaged son, all while knowing it was a lie. We're past reasonable, Dorothy." She huffed off, but the phone kept ringing. My mother called, too. I let those calls go, every last one. I wish I could tell you I was strong and clear-headed through all of that. Truth is, I was a mess. I wandered that little house with my hand on my belly, talking to the baby more than I talked to any living adult. "Did he laugh at me?" I asked her once, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, looking at my own swollen face. "Did he think I was silly?" In the quiet hours, the betrayal felt like a physical thing, like a bruise under my skin. I'd remember a moment, a dinner, a walk, a night when we'd sat on the couch passing a notebook back and forth, and feel a jolt of shame. Had any of it been real? Catherine finally said, "You need help, Maggie, real help. This is too big to carry alone." That's how I ended up in Dr. Chen's office. Dr. Patricia Chen was a calm woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a soft voice that still managed to cut through my fog. Her office smelled like peppermint tea and old books, a little haven tucked away in a building that looked like every other office on the block. "Tell me what happened," she said. So I did. I poured it all out. The loneliness, the pressure, the first date with the notepad, the signing classes, the proposal in the sand, the wedding, the house, the baby, the reveal. I talked till my throat hurt and my eyes burned. "That's quite a betrayal," she said when I ran out of words. That simple sentence undid me. I started crying again, big heaving sobs that made my belly jump. "He says it was a test," she managed, "to find someone who would love him for himself." "And how do you feel about that?" she asked. "I feel like I was a contestant on a game show and nobody told me I was playing." She nodded slowly. "Your consent was violated. You entered into a relationship under false pretenses. That is real. That matters." Finally, I thought, someone saying out loud what my bones already knew. "But I want to ask you something, Margaret, and I want you to answer honestly, not as the woman who's furious right now, but as the woman you were then." I sniffed, wiped my nose. "Okay. In those 8 months before you married, did you love him?" "Yes," I said, without thinking. "That's why I married him." "Why did you love him?" "He was kind," I said slowly, "thoughtful, patient. He listened. He didn't interrupt. I faltered. "He was deaf," Dr. Chen said gently. "And a deaf partner can look like a lot of things. A good listener, a patient man, a gentle soul who doesn't talk over you. But sometimes what we fall in love with is not the person, it's the story we've told ourselves about them." I sat there a long time with that thought. Had I fallen in love with Richard, or had I fallen in love with his silence, with the way he couldn't put pressure on me the way other men had because he couldn't complain out loud? "He still lied," I said finally. "Yes," she agreed, "and that's not okay. The question isn't whether what he did was wrong. It clearly was. The question is what you want to do now. I don't know if I can ever trust him again, I whispered. That's fair. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild, but not impossible if both of you are willing to do some very hard work, and if you decide that's what you want. I wasn't sure what I wanted. By then, I was 7 months pregnant, my ankles like balloons, my savings account shrinking by the week. I'd moved in with Catherine, sleeping in her guest room surrounded by boxes of baby clothes I couldn't bring myself to wash yet. Richard offered to keep paying for the house, my expenses, everything. I refused. Taking his money felt like accepting his version of the story. But when Dr. Chen suggested he come in for a joint session, I said yes. The first time I saw him in that office, he looked smaller somehow, thinner. The expensive suit was wrinkled, like he'd slept in it. He started to sign something when he walked in, then froze. Sorry, habit, he said. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare use sign language with me again. His hands dropped to his sides. Dr. Chen laid out the rules. I could ask any question. He had to answer honestly. He couldn't walk out. We both had to show up again if we agreed to try. Why? I asked him first. Not the fairy tale answer, not the test of true love nonsense, the real reason. He stared at his hands for a long moment. Because I'm a coward, he said finally. I'll tell you, baby, that was not the answer I expected. Julia didn't leave me because I wasn't romantic enough, he went on. She left because I'm boring. I'm awkward. I'm good with computers and numbers, but I'm awful with people. Small talk exhausts me. Parties make me anxious. I never know what to say. So you decided to say nothing at all, I said. Yes, he admitted. Being deaf gave me an excuse. I didn't have to make conversation at parties. I didn't have to be charming. I could be quiet, and people would call that brave instead of weird. You saw me as a man who needed you, and I took advantage of that. I thought if I dropped the act after we were married, you'd already love me enough to stay. You watched me quit my job, I said. I know. You watched me struggle to learn sign language. I know. His voice broke a little. I am so sorry. And if I hadn't gotten pregnant, I asked, would you have told me then, or would you have just kept pretending forever? He swallowed. I honestly don't know, he said. I like to think I would have told you sooner, but the longer it went on, the harder it got. Every day I didn't tell you, it became this huge wall I didn't know how to climb. You stole almost 2 years of my life, I said. I know, he whispered. If you want to leave, I won't fight you. I'll support you and the baby. I'll sign whatever papers you want. But if there's even the smallest part of you that wants to try, I'll do anything. Therapy, honesty, whatever it takes. Dr. Chen didn't let him off easy. What she needs from you is not grand promises, she said. She needs consistent truth over time. She needs you to tolerate her anger without making this about your guilt. Can you do that? He nodded. I can try, he said. Trying is a small word, but sometimes it's the only one you've got. We kept going, week after week, sometimes twice. I asked ugly questions. Did you laugh at me when I messed up signs? Sometimes, he admitted, wincing, but not in a mean way. You were adorable. I never laughed where you could see. That's worse. That's exactly worse. Did you ever read my journals? No. And for whatever reason, I believed him on that. He looked honestly offended. Did you love me? Yes, he said, eyes bright with tears. I loved you from that first dinner. I loved you more every day. I started from a lie, and I didn't know how to get out. Loving someone doesn't excuse what they do, sugar, but it complicates how you feel about them. By 8 months pregnant, I moved back into the house in Palo Alto. I told myself it was for practical reasons. The baby needed a nursery and Catherine's place was too small. I told myself I was just using Richard's house, not choosing him. He slept in the guest room. "We are not together," I said, laying down my terms at the kitchen table. "We are co-parents sharing a roof until I decide what I want. You don't get a say in the timeline. You've done enough deciding for both of us." "I understand," he said, and for once I think he really did. 3 weeks later, our daughter arrived. They put that little bundle on my chest, all damp and red and furious at having been evicted. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a cry that filled the whole room. I looked up and saw Richard standing in the corner, one hand over his mouth, tears running down his face. "Do you want to hold her?" I asked. He nodded, unable to speak. This time, the silence was real. He took her so gently it broke my heart. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's ours," I said. We named her Claire Margaret Hayes. Claire changed everything, and she changed nothing. The anger didn't disappear, the hurt didn't magically heal, but there in the middle of all that wreckage was this tiny person who needed both of us. In those early weeks, when day and night blurred together and I cried in the shower from sheer exhaustion, Richard showed up. He woke up for feedings, he changed diapers with calm, efficient hands, he walked the floor with her pressed against his chest, humming under his breath, and I realized I'd never seen this version of him, the man who wasn't pretending to be anything but a tired, terrified new father. "You're good at this," I said once, sitting in the rocking chair at 2 in the morning, watching him sway with Claire. "I had to be," he said. "I already messed up with you. I wasn't going to mess up with her, too." We kept going to Dr. Chen, sometimes with Claire snuffling in her carrier. We talked about boundaries and trust and patterns we'd learned from our parents. Richard started seeing another therapist on his own to untangle what Dorothy had taught him about control and appearances. 6 months after Claire was born, I told him, "I'm still angry." "I know," he said. "I don't know if that will ever go away completely." "I know," he said again, quieter. "You don't get to rush me," I told him. "You don't get to ask, 'Are we okay yet?' and pout when I say no. You did this. You can't control the healing." "I understand," he said. And then, more important, he acted like he did. He gave me space when I needed it. He sat with me when I needed that instead. He stopped trying to fix it with money or grand gestures and started fixing it with small, steady truths. Dorothy was a harder knot to untangle. I didn't speak to her for a year. She left messages, she sent gifts for Claire, she mailed long, dramatic letters. I put them in a drawer and ignored them. Finally, when Claire was about 14 months old and starting to toddle around on unsteady legs, I agreed to meet Dorothy for coffee. She'd lost some of her shine. The hair dye couldn't hide the tired around her eyes. She wrapped both hands around her mug like it could steady her. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Yes," I answered, "you do." "I thought I was protecting my son," she said, "but I was really just trying to control him. I was scared he'd end up alone, and I wanted to pick someone who would take care of him. I didn't think about the fact that you were a person too, with a life and dreams, not just a solution." "I was lonely," I said, "but that doesn't mean I didn't have a life. You helped him take that away from me." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I am sorry, Margaret, truly. It wasn't enough. It never could be, but it was something." If you want a relationship with your granddaughter, I said, you have to understand something. I'm not the submissive, grateful daughter-in-law you thought you were buying with this little test. I have boundaries. I will enforce them. I will not let you play games with Claire. Dorothy blinked, then nodded. I'll get help, real help, therapy, whatever it takes. And you know what? She did. Now, we never became best friends. There was too much history baked into those Sunday roasts. But she learned to keep her opinions to herself more often, and that was worth something. My mother, well, we got too polite. We never quite got all the way back to close. She still insisted she thought the test was just a little thing, that she didn't realize how far Richard and Dorothy had taken it. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. What I knew, standing in my own kitchen at 40, rocking my baby girl, was that my mother had known enough to warn me and chose not to. Some fractures never quite fuse back smooth, sugar. They heal, but if you run your fingers over them, you can feel the ridge. Life went on. It does that, even when you think it shouldn't. We had another baby 3 years later, a little boy we named James. By then, the house in Palo Alto felt lived in. Fingerprints on the walls, toys under the couch, a permanent pile of laundry on the dining chair. Richard and I were not the couple we'd been when we stood on that beach. That couple was gone. In their place were two tired, older, slightly battered people who had seen each other at their worst and chosen over and over to stay. On our 10th anniversary, we renewed our vows in the backyard under that scraggly lemon tree. Just us, the kids, and a few friends who'd seen the whole ugly, beautiful journey. No interpreter this time, no notes, just words. I promise to never lie to you again, Richard said, voice shaking. Even when the truth makes me look bad, even when I'm scared, I will tell you the truth. I promise to keep choosing you, I said, even when I'm angry, even when I remember, even when walking away looks easier than staying. We meant it, both of us. That was 28 years ago. Now I'm 68, Richard's 65, Claire's married with 2 babies of her own, James just got engaged. The house in Palo Alto has seen homework and birthday parties and slammed doors and quiet apologies. The lemon tree finally died and we planted a new one. Some mornings, I sit at our old kitchen table with my coffee and watch Richard butter his toast, and I still feel the ghost of that night, the note falling to the floor, his voice saying, "I'm not deaf." It's like an echo from another house layered under this one. Some days I think, what if I'd left? What if I'd taken Claire and gone back to San Francisco or moved closer to Catherine? What if I'd met someone else, someone who started with the truth? I don't know, sugar. I really don't. But then I remember Claire's wedding last year. Richard walking her down the aisle, tears streaming down his face, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh through her own tears. I remember James calling his daddy to ask about engagement rings, about mortgages, about how you know when you're ready. I remember quiet evenings on the back porch, the sky turning pink over the rooftops, Richard's hand resting on mine, not trying to fix anything, just being there. We talk now, really talk. We talk about our fears, about getting old, about the ways our parents messed us up, and the ways we've probably messed up our kids. We talk about the past without pretending it was all good, and about the future without pretending it will all be easy. And sometimes I think Dr. Chen was right all those years ago. Maybe I did fall in love with the idea of Richard first, the quiet, patient deaf man who needed me. Maybe he fell in love with the idea of me, the endlessly understanding woman who'd put up with being tested. but we stayed long enough to meet the real people underneath all that pretending, and we chose them. Now, sugar, let me tell you the part that matters most to me these days, when the house is quiet and the grandbabies have gone home. A marriage, any family really, is a lot like an old house. When you first walk in, you fall in love with the light, the way the sun hits the floor just so in the afternoons, the shape of the porch, the promise of what could be. You don't see the cracks in the plaster or the way the floor dips in the hallway. Or if you do, you tell yourself it's charming. Then you move in. You start to notice the drafts that creep under the doors in winter, the one window that never quite shuts all the way, the floorboard in the bedroom that squeaks every time somebody gets up to use the bathroom at night. You can do one of two things when you see those flaws. You can pretend they're not there, paint over the cracks, lay a rug over the soft spot in the floor, tell your guests, "Oh, that's just how old houses are," and hope nobody falls through. Or you can pull up the rug, you can pry up the boards and look at what's rotting underneath. You can call in help. You can do the messy, noisy, inconvenient work of repair. It's still the same house, same address, same four walls, but it's not the same home because now you know what's inside it. You know where it's strong and where it's fragile. You know where to step carefully and where you can dance. Richard and I built our whole first floor on a lie. Nice paint, pretty curtains, a fancy front door, all of it sitting on weak joists. When the truth came crashing through that kitchen ceiling, I had every right to walk out, and there are days I still wonder what would have happened if I had. But I chose to stay. I didn't stay because I'm saintly or because a good wife stands by her man no matter what. I stayed because when we pulled up the boards, what I found underneath the rot was a man who was willing to crawl down there with me, a man who was willing to sit in the dust of his own bad choices and say, "You're right, this is terrible, show me where to start." Not everybody gets that. Not everybody should try for that. Some houses are unsafe, and the bravest thing you can do is grab your babies and walk out that front door with nothing but the clothes on your back. Some lies are too big, some damage too deep. But if you do choose to stay, if you decide this is the house you're going to live in, then you owe it to yourself to stop pretending the floor is sagging. You owe it to yourself to open the doors you've kept shut, to go into the rooms you've been afraid to look at, to let the light in, even when it shows you dust you wish you didn't see. These days, when I walk across our kitchen, I can still feel where the floor dips just a little. It's been repaired, but it's not perfect. My feet know where that weak spot used to be. And you know what? I'm glad. Because every time I feel that tiny give under my heel, I remember that love is not the glossy front porch you show the neighbors. Love is the work you do in the crawl space. Love is the decision, day after ordinary day, to keep shoring up the beams under the life you've built together. If you're standing in your own crooked house right now, staring at a crack you can't unsee, don't let anybody tell you what you have to do. This is your home, your life, your choice. Just don't be afraid to turn on the lights, baby. Whether you stay and patch the walls or pack a suitcase and walk out that front door, you deserve a house where the floors might be scuffed and the roof might leak a little, but the foundation, the truth between you and the people you love, is solid enough to stand on. And if it's not, well, sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do at 68, looking back on the life she chose, is admit that she would choose honesty over comfort every time, even if it means living in a smaller house with fewer rooms, but with a front door she can open without flinching.